Hi, Alan Stratton from As Wood Turns. After the Christmas Ornament Challenge, I received questions of how did they do that one? How did they do that one? How did they do that one? Well, this video is a response to that. Although the challenge is over, it will come again next year in November, so we'll see your ornament there and your improvement in the process. So this ornament is I turned it into a spiral box. It's actually a hollow box project and a carving project. And I also used one of my bayonet style bushings to make a quick and easy lid fitting for it. So key to this also is carving. So I used a right angle tool. This is a Proxxon, and a rotary carving tool. This is an icon carver. But then I really don't want to hold the wood in my hand. I want to leave it in the chuck, but the spindle is hard to keep steady and it's a different angle. So I took one of my chuck hubs and mounted it to a piece of steel, drilled with a bolt through it. So this goes in my tool rest, chuck goes on this, wood goes in the chuck, and I can carve at different angles for that. There's one commercially on the market that does a little bit more, but this is much less expensive. So let's go to it and make this kind of open potpourri or sweet thing box.
This wood is elm, harvested last summer. I wrapped it then in plastic and stored it in a shed. Right now it is still wet and is frozen solid. The ice does not seem to faze my gouge. After roughing it round, now I need tenons on both ends, then decide how long to have for this project. My skew is always my dovetail finishing tool. I did not try to part it completely with this long of a spindle. I finished on a bandsaw with a clamp to keep the wood from spinning. With the wood now mounted to the chuck, I can form the outer shape. My bit is dull. I have to take a minute to hit the cutting edge with the diamond tool, then finish. It is a little better. I'm drilling to the full depth of the inside hollow. Next, hollow with a straight tool with a small round carbide on the end. Since the opening is fairly large, I do not need to use bent tools. Now to lay out the spirals. First, I mark the top and the bottom. Then, using the indexing on the chuck, mark 8 lines between the top and the bottom. Just in case, I mark a couple more divisions around the wood. Then, draw in diagonals. Then, with a cutting wheel and my right angle cutter, I cut out the diagonal lines. Then flare out from those edges with the cutter more angled, but very lightly. I keep my left hand on the chuck and use it to rotate the wood. I still have a blood stain on my floor from when my brother borrowed this tool to carve a project. Still, with the right angle tool, I flare more, but with a rasp cutter. Now switch to a rotary tool with a small, long rasp cutter. With this tool, I can reach in and round the inner edge. Now a little work to clean up the inside bottom. Long, heavy scrapers work best for me for this area. With a long strip of 80 grit canvas-backed sandpaper, I can sand each rib. I started this while still mounted to the lathe, but the spindle kept rotating. Instead, I mounted the chuck with the wood to a chuck hub that I have mounted to a steel bar that fits my tool rest. The 80 grit cuts and shapes as well as long as the sandpaper is long enough to go in and around the wood. Back and forth, up and down, etc. As I need to work to a new area, I can loosen the tool rest, rotate, and lock it again. Then sand up through the grits. Higher grits go much faster. The shaping grit was 80. Next, I'm drilling this hole to fit a bushing. Now the wood is reversed into an expansion mount in the bushing mortise. This is a weak mount which makes live-centered support critical. Then cut away the excess wood on the bottom. When most wood is gone, I pull back the live center to finish up. This project needs a cap. I have selected a piece of plumb burl mounted to the chuck. Right now I need to shape the bottom of the cap, then drill for the bushing, mark the inner cavity, and hollow out the very middle just a little bit to lighten the load. I have reversed the plumb into that bushing mortise. This is still aggressive work, so I keep the live center in place while I find the shape that I want for the top. Periodically, I set the bottom next to it and assess the relative mass and height. The last act is to sever the last wood at the top. Then I can sand it completely. Epoxy is in 2 stages. First to mount one side, second to mount the mating side. No grain match required this time. However, I still do it in 2 stages, thinking that any error in the mortar's depth can be eliminated by allowing the second part to lock relative to the bushing instead of to the wood. It still has to be close, but epoxy can handle the difference. Plastic between the bushing top and bottom prevents any squeeze out from locking this together. A catastrophe. Finally, I can apply walnut oil for a finish, and my spiral box is finished. Maybe for potpourri or whatever. I prefer sweet whatevers. This was as much a carving project as a turning project. I cannot see a way to complete this project without the carving tools. Maybe even a battery-powered LED light as I think about it. Please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe on my website, and tell your friends about my videos. I appreciate your comments and questions. Every week I add a new wood turning video to my website. Always, please wear your full face shield anytime the lathe is running. It is your last line of defense, as it was mine years ago. I will see you next week with another wood turning video. Happy New Year to all.